Thank you so much, everyone, for having me here today. Thank you, Dr. Andres Romer, for having me. It's my first time ever in Mexico City. I'm very excited about this. My presentation today is going to be very interactive. I'm going to, hopefully, the goal is to have you really, during just this short presentation, start to improve your ability to remember. And memory is fundamental to learning. It is fundamental to your acquisition of knowledge. And we all know that knowledge is powerful. What you learn today can really benefit you in many ways throughout your career and personal life. I'd like to start out with a quick demonstration to show just what's possible with a little bit of memory training. Can we give a microphone to the first person in the first row over here in the middle? Okay, I'd like for you to call out, please, just a single digit, 0 through 9. 7? All right, so we're just going to write a 7 there, pretty big, so hopefully everybody can see it. Can you guys see it? Everybody up there? Okay, good. That's what we were going for. And then once you give a number in that front row, just pass it to the person next to you.
3.
3? Okay. 1?
5.
5? 2? 8? 4? 6? 9? 7? 1? 6?
7.
We had a
8.
7.
8.
8.
9.
9. Yeah, let's pass it to the next row, I guess.
4.
4? We're just going to try to fill this up here.
8.
8. 6? 6? 5? 5? 1?
3.
3?
9.
9?
7.
7? 5? And 5? All right. Put this down back here. All right, I'm going to try to remember that. I think, let's see. Where do you know where I can't see it? Here? I'll close my eyes maybe so you know I'm not looking at anything. Just let me know if I make any mistakes as I try to repeat that number sequence from memory, all right? Let's see how it goes here. I think we started off with a 7, followed by a 3. Next it was a 1. Then there was a 5. Then a 2. Then an 8, I believe. Then a 4. Then a 6. And then it was a 9. And then a 7. And then a 1, hopefully. Followed by a 6. And then after that we had, let's see, See, this is live. This is what happens when you do it live. A clue. Give me a clue. I'm gonna say it's a 7. Okay, a 7 followed by an 8, followed by a 9, followed by hopefully a 4. Then next an 8, then a 6, and then a 5, and then a 1, and then a 3. Followed by a 9, then a 7, and a 5. Was it right? Okay. So, this is all training, right? You are all capable of doing extraordinary things with your memory. You're going to learn the techniques that I've learned over the years. Quickly, to impress upon you how well these techniques work, I'm going to attempt to repeat that number sequence from memory backwards. So completely in reverse, as it would appear across the chart, right to left, bottom to top. Let's see how it goes backwards. All right, backwards, I think it's 5, 7, 9, 3, 1, 5, 6, 8, 4, 9, 8, 7, continuing along, 6, 1, 7, 9, 6, 4, 8, 2, 5, 1, 3, 7, backwards. Was it right? Thank you. A little tough to do it under the live conditions pressure here. It's all training. I did win the United States Memory Championship. I memorized the exact order of a shuffled deck of playing cards in less than 90 seconds. I memorized actually more than 4,000 pieces of data about the United States Congress as part of filming for a show called PBS Nova Science. I've performed a lot of crazy feats over the years, but anyone can learn to do this. This is going to give you a huge advantage in your career and personal life. We're going to go through some exercises now. Some of what I ask you to do today is going to seem a bit silly or unusual, but please bear with me because I promise you that these strange things are greatly going to improve your ability to remember just about anything at all. So I like everybody, please close your eyes at this point. It's going to take just about a few minutes, a warm-up visualization exercise. With your eyes closed, I want for you to picture what I described to you. I want for you to picture yourself in your current residence, the place that you currently live. In the living room area, we're going to have some fun with Donald Trump here. We're going to see Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton about to engage in a debate in the middle of your living room. Just picture that, and although this strikes you as very unusual, rather than ask any questions, you decide to just hang back and observe what's going on. So they begin to debate there, just watch this debate unfold. It starts to become really heated between them, and at one point, Clinton reaches behind her podium to pull out a pie suddenly. She takes it, she throws it at Trump, hits him square in the face. It splatters all over Trump's face. You can see the pie dripping off Trump now. You can cheer for that if you want. He's not happy about this, so he now reaches behind his podium to also pull out a pie. He takes it, he throws it at Clinton. Splat hits her in the face. What started off as a debate has at this point turned into a full-blown pie fight. The politicians are just continuously throwing pies at each other. Pies flying all over the place. You can worry about who's going to clean up the living room later. Just see this as best you can. You are, at this point, primarily experiencing images, right? You have imagery running through your head. What I'd like you to do now is attempt to involve even more senses. As you experience this scenario happening, imagine that you can not only see it happening, try to imagine that you can hear it happening. You can hear the pie as it splatters on the politicians. Really imagine you can hear it. Imagine that you can smell it as well. Let's take a step further, walk up to one of the politicians, take some of the pie off of their face, feel it in your hands, maybe it feels sort of sticky. Go ahead now, even put some of that pie in your mouth. Taste it. Hopefully it tastes pretty good to you, although A lot of people tell me that it tastes like politician at this point. Go ahead and open up your eyes. Pretty easy exercise to complete there, right? Some people find that to be a fun exercise, but what does this have to do with your ability to remember things? How can this help you to remember names and faces to get more out of business networking? How can this help you to remember presentations, important business-related facts and figures, foreign language vocabulary? If you are able to complete that exercise, you can do all of that very easily. There are 3 reasons why. Reason number 1, I had you there exercise your visualization ability. And your visual memory is incredibly powerful. An example that I like to cite in my presentations around the world is a situation that we have all experienced at some point in our life. We've all experienced it where we will see someone that we could have met even years ago. We may have met that person years in the past. Oftentimes, right away, as soon as we see their face, we remember their face. We know that we've met them somewhere before, but a lot of times we can't seem to remember their name, right? Pretty common experience. Something else that happens to us often, let's say you go to a party, one of your friends attends with you, you're both there meeting a lot of new people. 2 weeks after that party is over, you're talking with your friend that attended with you, and your friend describes someone to you that you had met at the party. Your friend says, do you remember that attorney that we met a couple of weeks ago? He's also a member of the tennis club. Given just that little bit of description, a lot of times right away, you both can picture that guy from the party. You might even remember what he was wearing when you met him, but a lot of times neither one of you can manage to remember the name, right? Another example, how many times have you been describing to a friend or family member, an actor from a TV show or movie? You and your friend or family, you can picture the person very clearly, but for some reason neither one of you can remember the name at that moment, right? That's another common experience. Why do those things happen to us? In terms of our interactions with people, we see the face. When we're meeting people, we see the face, or we see the face on TV. At no point do we see the name, right? The name is something much more abstract to the brain. So one way to get better at remembering names is to turn them into powerful visuals. I might have time to get into it a little bit in more detail later, but for now, someone named Mike might be a microphone. Jane, maybe you visualize a chain, okay? Create a visual for the name, it's going to make it more memorable. After I had you visualize during that exercise with Trump and Clinton, I then had you start to get additional senses involved from there, right? As you do that, you are activating more and more areas of your brain, and you are building more and more connections in your mind to the information, so it makes it much easier to retrieve it later. So when I started in that episode of PBS's Nova Science, they had me perform some pretty crazy memory feats on the show. And then I trained David Pogue, who in the US, he's a correspondent for the technology industry for CBS News and the New York Times. I trained him, and soon he was able to perform some cool memory feats with just a little training. After that, they had some neuroscientists come on the show, and these neuroscientists, brain scientists, talked about how it was I was able to pull off those memory feats and how David Pogue could do it just after a little training. And they confirmed that that's because with these memory techniques that I've mastered over the years and that you're going to learn about during my presentation, what's happening is we are recruiting so much more of the brain to help us. Areas of the brain that most people would never involve when committing things to memory, with these techniques, we're recruiting more of the brain, so it becomes so much easier to remember, and part of this is learning to utilize additional senses to activate more of your brain. Third and final thing to take away from that opening exercise is that I had you imagine something happening there that is pretty strange, unusual, out of the ordinary. You would never expect to see that happening in the middle of your living room. I had you do that because I'd like for you to learn to take advantage of the psychological aspect to your memory. And that is all of us, with putting forth little to no effort at all, we all tend to remember things that catch us by surprise, that are strange, unusual, extraordinary in some way, right? If this were to actually happen right now, at this moment, if it actually happened if some giant elephants came crashing through the doors right now and started spraying water all over everyone in here with their trunks, if that happened right now, you might remember that for the rest of your life and always tell that story. You will never believe this. We were at the Day of Knowledge in Mexico City. There was some memory guy up there. I don't remember his name, but the elephants, I remember, crashed into the room, sprayed water on everyone. That might be stuck in your head forever without you even trying to commit that to memory, right? To this day, it still isn't fully understood how that works in the brain, how sometimes in one instant, something will go straight into our long-term memory, whereas other times, even with a lot of effort, we have difficulty getting important things into our long-term memory. Although it isn't fully understood, we do realize that there is this psychological aspect to human memory. Knowing that, we can take advantage of it, we can harness it, and apply it to helping us remember things that would be very useful. Presentations, names, things that would help us in business, school, personal life. When you put together the three principles that I just went over, visualization, additional senses from there, and you use your creativity and your imagination to make what you are seeing and experiencing crazy, unusual, extraordinary, when you put that all together, it is amazing how easy it becomes to remember just about anything. We're going to put this into practice right now. We're going to go through an exercise. You are all going to commit to memory the following random list of words, using nothing but your brain here, no electronic device, no writing it down. I know people are not used to exercising their brains as much these days. You're going to commit to memory this word list. It's going to be monkey, iron, rope, kite, house, paper, shoe, worm, envelope, pencil, river, rock, tree, cheese, and dollar. Okay, that's the random list of words. Right here, were you looking confident? Did you want to recite those to us in the third row? She was looking right at Matt. She looked ready to go. I'm just kidding with you. I'm not really going to call on you at this point. A lot of times, most people in the audience are looking at me at this point. Come on, man. There's no way I'm going to remember that. Not unless you give me a lot of time to do it. But in fact, you are all going to have the entire random list of words committed to memory perfectly, forwards and backwards, with just about 3 minutes of study time. That's it. And without ever looking at this again, no further review necessary, next week, even maybe weeks from now, you will still know all of those words, forwards and backwards. The whole key here is to change your approach. Try to, rather than coming at this as a boring and difficult exercise in memory, try to approach this more as a fun opportunity to use your creativity and your imagination, okay? You saw a little bit of one of my CNN clips on the intro video, right? I actually had to memorize on CNN a half deck of cards during the commercial break. I only had about 2 minutes to do it, and then I had to recite it when they came back live on the air. It wasn't recorded live, so a lot of pressure there. If you pay attention to that clip, you can also watch it on my website. When I'm memorizing those cards, I'm smiling, I'm giggling. I think they thought I was a little bit crazy when I was on that show, but that's the whole key to this. If you all are smiling and giggling during the exercise, it's a good sign you're going to remember all the words. So just have fun with this. It's going to be easy, all right? The first word was monkey, so I want for you all to just visualize a monkey, okay? Picture this monkey in your head. The monkey is dancing around, making monkey noises, whatever monkey would sound like. I'm working on the monkey impression. The point here is to see and hear the monkey, all right? The monkey now picks up a gigantic iron, because that was the second word. So just see this monkey dancing around with an iron. The iron starts to fall, but a rope attaches itself to the iron. Maybe you even feel the rope. Maybe it feels sort of rough. Really interact with it, okay? You look up the rope and you see that the other end of the rope is attached to a kite. That kite's flying around in the air. Maybe you reach up and try and touch it, that kite, okay? The kite now crashes into the side of a house. Really see it smash into that house. The house, you notice, is completely covered in paper. For some strange reason, it's covered in paper. Paper was the next word. Out of nowhere, a shoe appears. It starts to walk all over the paper. Maybe it's messing up the paper as it's walking on it, that shoe. The shoe smells pretty badly, so you decide to investigate. You look inside, you find a little worm crawling around inside of that shoe. Really see that smelly worm. Next word was worm. The worm jumps out of the shoe and into an envelope. Maybe it's going to mail itself or something. I don't know. Envelope was next. A pencil appears magically out of thin air. It starts to write all over that envelope. Maybe it's addressing it, that pencil. The pencil now jumps into a river, and there's a huge splash for some reason when that pencil hits the river. The river, you notice, is crashing up against a giant rock. Picture that. Rock. The rock flies out of the river. It crashes into a tree. Picture that. This tree is growing cheese. You probably haven't seen a tree like that. This one's growing cheese. And out of each piece of cheese shoots $1. The last word was dollar. Okay? Now, I'm going to go through this again, but very quickly now, and your job at this point is to simply replay through this little story that you've created in your mind. We started off with a monkey. What was the monkey dancing around with? It was an iron. What attached? A rope. The other end of the rope was attached to what? A kite. What did the kite crash into? A house. What was the house covered in? Paper. What walked on it? A shoe. What was crawling in the shoe? A worm. The worm then jumped into what? An envelope. What wrote on the envelope? A pencil. The pencil jumped into what? It was a river. The river was crashing into the rock. The rock flew into the tree. What was that tree growing? Cheese. And what shot out? $1. So now you should be able to pretty easily recall the entire random list of words by just going through the story in your mind and recalling each major object that you encounter. So we're going to do this now officially as a group. I want you guys to yell these out loud as you can on my cue, starting with the first word, which was monkey.
Iron, rope, kite, house, paper, shoe, worm, envelope, pencil, river, rock,
Tree.
cheese, dollar.
Excellent. Give yourselves a round of applause. Great job, guys. Great job. Are you ready now? In the third row? You wanted to give it a try? Give it a try. Let's give her a microphone. Stand up and recite those from memory. Take your time. Take your time.
Monkey, iron, rope, kite, house, paper, shoe, worm, envelope, pencil, river, rock, tree, cheese, dollar.
Awesome. Great job. Really, give her a round of applause. Great job. Very nice. Under the pressure too. Awesome. I'd like a brave volunteer from the audience to please stand up and recite those words for us from memory backwards. Backwards. All right. We got somebody that was ready to go. All right. Please stand up and give it a try.
Dollar, cheese, tree, rock, river, pencil, envelope, worm, shoe, paper, house, kite, rope, iron, monkey.
Great job. Wow. Nice job. Really well done. Really well done, all of you. That first technique that you've learned there, that technique is called the story method, okay? It is just one of many techniques that memory champions like myself use to pull off these feats of memory. So I've been asked to be on a lot of TV shows over the years, Science Channel, Discovery Channel, all sorts of news shows to perform memory feats, but there's nothing different about my brain compared to everyone else's. I've just learned these techniques that you can already start to see they're very powerful and effective. Again, you all can do so much more with your memory, and this will help you in many different fields. If you stick to this type of training, you're going to notice many benefits over time. Benefit number one, your memory is going to improve over time because your brain is very trainable, all right? The more you force your brain to perform a particular function over and over again, the more it signals to your brain that that's something important for you to be able to do, so your brain finds a way to make itself better at doing it, okay? There was a science program, there was a segment in which there was a guy and he was in a very unfortunate accident, and a pole went through a certain area of his brain and he completely lost the ability to perform certain functions. But what happened is, with rehabilitation and training, the brain completely rewired itself. Areas of the brain that would normally have nothing to do with those functions took over, and he regained the ability to perform a lot of those functions. Your brain is incredibly trainable. The opposite, however, is also true. If you never have your brain perform a particular function, if you are always writing everything down, always entering things into electronic devices, outsourcing your memory, what you're telling your brain is, you know what? At this point in my life, it's not important for me to be able to remember things, and it makes sense in that case that you are going to lose your ability to remember over time, right? And this is very dangerous because, yes, there are cases where we can go ahead and outsource our memory to electronic devices, but there are other cases where we really still need that ability to remember. The good news is that if you make it a point to exercise your brain, exercise your memory, you can keep it strong and you can improve it no matter your age, at any age. Now, some people don't believe me when I tell them that. They are just stuck on this idea that someone older in age is going to have a memory worse than someone younger in age, and that's just the way it is. So I'd like to talk about one example. I represented the United States in the World Memory Championship. There was a guy there from Malaysia in his late 60s, so more than 30 years older than me, and he absolutely destroyed me in the World Memory Championship. This guy kicked my butt so badly, I was nowhere close to him. He actually memorized the entire dictionary, Advanced Learner's Edition, in English and Chinese. He's known as the Walking Dictionary, Dr. Yip Sway Choi from Malaysia. He did a demonstration for people in the audience and for people from the media that were there filming. They would call out any page number in the dictionary, give a row-column combination. Within a few seconds, he could tell you from memory the word there and its definition. He could even do the reverse. If you just called out chair, he would say chair. I think chair is on page 737, row 5, and he was right every single time. So this shows, and he was in his late 60s already at that point, so you can have a great ability to remember even later in your years, but you need to train your memory. He's constantly training his memory, working it out. If you do that, you'll improve your memory. You will also improve your visualization ability. You are going to notice you will be able to create these images in your mind much more quickly, and you will be able to see that imagery more clearly. Visualization ability has been linked in many studies to more than memory. It's been linked to overall intelligence. In fact, if you can take complex information and turn it into a simple series of images that you can visualize, this also helps to improve your understanding. And you will get a lot of practice with this if you stick to this type of memory training. In addition, this is good exercise in creativity and imagination, right? Coming up with these creative and imaginative stories. This is also really good exercise for your brain. Everyone is recommending nowadays a brain exercise program in addition to a physical exercise program. If you are destined to develop Alzheimer's or another form of dementia down the road, unfortunately, as of today, with the current research, no one has any idea how to prevent that from happening. But what they do believe is that by engaging in rigorous brain exercise, you can build up what they are calling a cognitive reserve. So if you were to Google that now or otherwise look it up, cognitive reserve is the terminology that you will find in the research. And what this basically means is building up some extra brain muscle. And if you do develop some form of dementia down the line, they believe that that cognitive reserve can help to make you more resistant to some forms of dementia. So you will gain more years of mental clarity that you would not have had otherwise without that cognitive reserve. So brain exercise, very important. I give speeches around the United States for executive groups with a professor from UCSF, Dr. Adam Ghazali, who does memory research in his lab, and one project that they're working on is actually developing video games that are designed to thoroughly exercise your brain by playing this game. But he believes in this concept of brain exercise, cognitive reserve. There are many applications for these memory techniques. Before I get into my most popular topic, which is usually names, because we can all relate to that, it's going to help you in any business, it will help you in your personal life. Before I get to that, I want to clarify, I want to make it clear that these types of techniques, I'm only given about 45 minutes today, these techniques don't apply just to random words. That's the best way to start out learning these techniques. But I want to impress upon you, these techniques apply to even very complex types of information as well. Harvard University hired me to give seminars for their graduate students. Many Harvard business students, medical students, law students have been through my 1- and 2-day memory training programs. I want to give you a little bit of a taste for this now with another exercise so you can start to see that it doesn't just need to be a monkey for a monkey, an iron for an iron. That imagery can remind you of something a little bit broader, and in some cases much broader. But we're going to just go up a step a little bit here with the next exercise. You're going to visualize what I described to you, everybody. I want for you to picture these giant machines, okay? Whatever that would look like to you, just visualize these giant machines. These giant machines are smashing up a huge pile of gold and silver. So picture that, they're smashing up this huge pile of gold and silver. Rising up out of the gold and silver, vehicles. Whatever that would look like for you, vehicles. Shooting out of the windows of the vehicles, medicine. Medicine shoots out of the windows of the vehicles. And exploding out of the medicine, oil. Oil explodes out of the medicine. That was it. This one's much shorter than the previous exercise. We're going to review that. I want for you to just replay through the story. So we started off with the giant machines. The machines were smashing up a huge pile of gold and silver. What rose up? Vehicles. What shot out of the windows of the vehicles? It was medicine. What exploded out of the medicine? It was oil. Okay? I would like a brave volunteer to please stand up and just recite those random items for us.
Was giant machines, silver and gold, vehicles, medicine, oil.
Great job. Give him a round of applause. Great job. What is your name? Alejandro? Alejandro, thank you for that. What Alejandro did there, without realizing it, or maybe he did realize it, I'm not sure, he actually just recited for us the top 5 exports of the UK. Okay? So if you were to now look that up, you're going to find listed as the UK's top exports, it's going to list machinery, precious metals, vehicles, pharmaceuticals, and oil. All right? So there you start to see how the imagery doesn't need to perfectly match what you're trying to remember. You're basically building up a mental cue card, a mental note card. This might not seem like that much at first, but trust me, when you are meeting with clients, potential clients, or it is a presentation in front of your colleagues, when you have easy mental access to these important business-related facts and figures, you are so much more impressive, right? You are more perceived to be the expert in your particular field as opposed to someone else that gets along just fine, but they're always having to look things up. That person, our perception is more of maybe they're just starting out in their career, they're more of a novice, they're not yet the expert in that field, all right? This little bit of preparation goes a long way. You will be more impressive in business. You will be more memorable, okay? I'm now going to get into my most popular topic, names and faces. I like to talk about the book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. It's a very popular business-related book. In that book, it was written that the sweetest sound to a person in any language is the sound of their own name, and also that everyone's favorite subject is themselves. So in fact, by remembering people's names and things about them, it helps you to build better business, personal relationships. It's about building a rapport with people, right? So if you meet someone at an event, and the next time you see them, you can say, hey, Alejandro, how are you? How's your wife, Nancy? How was your last round of golf? What that person is feeling, even if it isn't a conscious thought, the feeling is, wow, they must be pretty important to you, and that in turn makes them much more interested in wanting to get to know you and what you're about better, right? This is huge for getting more out of business networking and also to build better relationships with people in general. One profession in which they are very crystal clear on the power in this, politicians. So I've actually been hired by some politicians for private coaching with me on only names, nothing else, because when a politician attends a fundraiser, they want to know the name of everyone there. They want to know their spouse's name. They want to know things they like so they know what topics maybe to bring up in conversation. They want to know things that all those people don't like so they know what topics maybe to avoid in conversation. Politicians are very clear on how this helps to make you a more popular and more likable person. Also, I was recently listening to an audiobook on business success in general, and it pointed out that your likability factor is a huge factor in whether or not you succeed. They gave two examples. Job applicants, two job applicants applying for a job. One applicant is much more qualified, but the other applicant is much more likable. Unfortunately, how things work in real life situations, a lot of times the more likable person will get the job. And the same thing goes for advancement in your career. Sometimes you do the best job. Someone did not quite as well, but they got along better with everyone in the office. A lot of times they will get the promotion instead. Unfortunately, this is how the real world works. Your likability is a huge factor in your success, and remembering people's names, things about them, is going to help improve your likability factor. Now, on the opposite side, the opposite is also true. If you are not remembering people's names, or maybe even worse, you're calling them by the wrong name, this can be very detrimental to both business and personal relationships. My first job, I went to Berkeley in the San Francisco Bay Area. My first job out of college was at a law firm. And the number one reason why I quit that job was because even after a year of working there, there were still attorneys that were calling me by the wrong name. At one point, I was like furious about it. I think the anger still comes back when I mention it now. It comes back to me. This can really hurt business relationships. An example that came in more recently at the end of one of my presentations, someone pointed out to me, I don't know if you guys are familiar with the Warriors in the San Francisco Bay Area, the basketball team. One of the top players used to be associated with Nike. He had a sponsorship with Nike. The number one reason why he ended his relationship with Nike is because at multiple meetings there were executives that were calling him by the wrong name. And this happened, this was in an Inc.com article, and it cited his father and also him being really upset that the executives couldn't make the correction over the course of many meetings. They kept calling him Stefan, and his name is Stephen Curry. And the article pointed out he signed on with Under Armour instead and it could be a $14 billion difference in market cap if he continues to be a popular player. So sometimes billions of dollars are at stake by calling people the wrong names. It can be very bad. So how do you improve your ability to remember names? 4 steps that you can put into practice right after my presentation. It should be easy for all of you. I encourage you to give this a try. Step number 1, from this day forward, when you are introduced to someone, make it a point to immediately repeat their name and shake their hand if you can. So if you're introduced to someone named Mike, nice to meet you, Mike, or pleased to meet you, Mike, that might seem really obvious, but a lot of times when someone is introducing themselves to us, our mind is everywhere else on anything else other than the name, right? That first step forces you to pay attention for at least 1 second. That's the only way you could repeat the name right back to the person. Step number 2, early on in your interaction with a person, ask them a simple question using their name. So, Mike, how do you know Chester? Or Mike, how long have you been involved with this organization? Just one question early on. I want to clarify something here. I don't mean use the name over and over again to where it starts to seem a little bit weird in the conversation. I mean, really just one time early on is enough to reinforce it in your mind, all right? Step number 3, take a few seconds or less to think of a connection between the name and anything at all that you already know. And I really mean anything. So Mike, maybe Mike Tyson pops in your head. It could be a character from a TV show or movie named Mike. But it could also be something as simple as you have a friend or family member that also has that name, all right? Think of a connection between the name and literally anything at all that you already know. It's going to help the name to stick so much better in your mind. And again, that should take a few seconds or less. Step number 4, whenever you leave the party, the meeting, whatever type of function it might be, make it a point to try and say goodbye to people actually using their names, okay? That is going to go a long way toward helping you to remember more of those names the next time you see those people. And if at that particular point in time you've already forgotten the name, I highly recommend that you ask them their name again right there, because at that point, they're less likely to be offended because they don't expect you to know their name yet, right? At that point in time, I believe they are more likely to really appreciate the fact that you care enough to know their name for the next time you see them. You're showing interest in that person, and again, that makes them much more interested in wanting to get to know you, right? Now, it's the next time you see them, and especially if you've already met them a couple of times before, where it starts to become an issue, and the feeling is maybe they're not that important to you, you're just interested, you're trying to further your own interests. Again, this can be very detrimental to both business and personal relationships. I'm going to close out the presentation portion now with less than a minute left and open things up for question and answer period. I think we have about 10 or 15 minutes for questions. Right way in the back of the